2010, I went about fixing up a lot of the jigs and fixtures in my workshop. One of them was my shooting board, which I felt there were a lot of design possibilities in improving its performance. One of them was to make it a ramp shooting board. The other was to introduce nice slick materials for the plane to ride against. And the version that I came up with I called the Super Shoot. Shoot because there's a downward flow to the ramp surface. Now in this early Super Shoot model, I lipped MDF with solid maple, and the way it worked was there was a solid piece of UHMW tape that was screwed down and a bearing strip along this side of acetal. The way the fence worked, the 90-degree fence had a lot of forward travel, so if you chewed into it and made it out of square, you could advance it and clean that up. And you could set that to be right where the blade was, very close to it. You were never actually cutting into the edge of the shooting board, which I like. You never have to true that up. This is micro-adjustable in relation to the blade, the sole of the plane. And there were different attachments. For shooting miters, this triangular block attached through a bolt in the back of the 90-degree fence. So you could set this to shoot miter joints. And also had a donkey ear. And the donkey ear rested against the side of the 90-degree fence, and through the back cavity, through threaded inserts, you used some bolts to tighten that down. In 2012, I made a major improvement to my shooting board, and I called it this Super Shoot 2.0. And here's what I basically did. I got tired of the idea of having to attach fences with bolts and getting out hardware. And with that in mind, I created a top that has liner bushings. And the fences, in this case the miter fence, has diamond pins that register in those bushings. Directly under the top here is a steel plate. So when I activate this mag switch product called a mag jig, it will hold it nice and firmly to the top. Also, I changed the design of the fences. In this case, each of the three fences has two parts. It has a micro-adjustable fence to establish the position in relation to the plane, sole. The post that comes up under here is in a fractionally oversized hole, so you can micro-adjust that. Now, and very importantly, it has a sliding fence. You could call it a sacrificial fence, which you can adjust to be right where the blade is, so that when you pass through your workpiece, you're not going to blow out the back fibers, you're not going to spelch, as they say in England. I changed the surface from a solid piece of UHMW that was screwed down to an 1/8 inch piece of UHMW tape. And the donkey ear attachment goes on in the same fashion. Just reach in the cavity and it further holds it down securely while you shoot carcass miter joints. I'm often asked, why use a shooting board? Many people have high-quality table saws with high-quality blades. They have chop saws, line trimmers. What would be the use of a shooting board when you have all these tools? My answer is that I myself am a professional woodworker, and I use those tools, but there are fitting situations where the precision of a shooting board can make a real difference. And one of the ways I demonstrate that is with this little fixture called, I call it a fit jig actually. And I simply want to show that I want this piece to fit between 2 points. And I want a quality of fit that a machinist would call an interference fit. So I could stop my cutting. If I had a knife line, I would get as close as I could, and then I would switch gears and come to the shooting board. Take one pass, take another pass, and let's see how it fits now. That's where the fit process begins. It's where I have to tap, press, or pound, and there's compression on the ends of the members. That's where I want my fitting process to begin. It could be that it's a little too tight for my application, a piece of marquetry or inlay. Maybe you want to make it so it's not quite so tight. There's a little more room for the glue. But in other applications, you want it this tight, and it's important that it be that tight. So that's where being able to take 2/1000ths of an inch every time is really key. And I can achieve this fit 10 out of 10 times coming to my shooting board. I would have to ask anybody how many times they can get that fit on a miter saw or a table saw. Welcome to my shop. I'd like to introduce to you the Vogt shooting board 2015 version. It's very similar to the Super Shoot 2.0, but I've made some important improvements. And they have to do with the runway surface. I've separated the runway itself from the acetyl strip. And the acetyl strip is now bonded to a tool steel plate, which is screwed to the side of the board. I've replaced the UHMW tape with waxed bamboo. I really like how the bamboo feels. It responds better to changes in temperature and humidity. I've also added bamboo instead of acetyl to the edge of this parallel guide strip. And my shooting board now is completely made of, aside from the maple on the front and the cleat, completely made of Europly, which is a very high quality 15 ply plywood. It's stable and remarkably flat. It has 3 fences. It has the 90-degree fixed fence, and this post that comes up here in this far hole is an oversized hole, and it's micro adjustable in relation to the sole of the plane. It has the sliding fence that you set to be right where the blade is, so that there's no tear out in the back. What you're seeing here is my parallel guide strip, and it's used for 51 style Stanley planes, the Lee-Nielsen 51 and the Veritas shooting plane. This is micro adjustable, and when you set it right, it slides, but it's held absolutely firmly so it can't wander away from the bearing strip. Let's see how this new setup works with a piece of cherry. So you'll notice that when I was shooting right then, I wasn't pushing it really fast back and forth. I like to use solid technique with my shooting. And it's easy because the shooting board is ramped. It's pitched away from me. One thing I like to point out is that because it's ramped, it's spreading the wear over a greater distance of the blade. If I were shooting drawer stock, let's say, and I was consecutively hitting one spot over and over, that would be putting a lot of PSI on one particular area of the blade, which can cause it to deform. It really helps keep the keen edge of the blade in good condition, if I can spread that wear over this amount of distance, it seems to keep it much more serviceable. And the other aspect that I really like is the ergonomic aspect as it relates to the technique of shooting, and that's something I'll address in a following video.